living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
As we age, we're often asked to get our affairs in order. But what does that really mean, and where do you even start? We'll talk about that today. Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm your host, Colleen Roylands, and today we're going to talk about aging from the legal perspective. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. Joining us today is Ramon Mercado. He is our staff attorney for Mountain Pacific Quality Health. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
Okay, we've got a big topic ahead of us.
Yep.
Aging from a legal perspective, and that's huge.
Correct.
Well, let's start by just talking about some of the important documents that we have to have on hand and make sure that are all up to date as we age.
Yeah, so as we age, we always want to keep everything kind of in line, just get everything ready. First thing you want to do is kind of make an inventory of all your assets or your liabilities. Make sure that you have all the important documents in one place, or at least a place where you can locate them. And just basically start planning for when things get a little different down the road, and so just be prepared.
So what are some of the most important documents that we need to be aware of?
As we age, I believe the top 5 will be medical power of attorney, a financial power of attorney, any advance directives, a will, and any orders for life-sustaining treatment. And there's other documents like financial documents, employment records, a list of medications, and stuff like that. So.
Okay, so that's kind of interesting. List of medications and employment documents. Why are those important?
Well, in case anything happens, in case of an emergency, it's always good to know what medications is the person taking and where they are, and also if there's any need to contact the employer, just to let them know, look, so and so is not going to be at work for a long time, and also to know if the employer provides some sort of like short-term disability or any insurance policies that might go into effect at that time.
Okay, that makes good sense.
Yeah.
As you're getting all these documents in order, and you have to start sharing them, right? You can't keep them locked away in a drawer. Someone needs to know where they are. Do you share them widely, or do you try to limit access to these documents?
You could store them away if you want, but anybody who's involved in this decision-making process, or anybody who's involved, for example, your agent, or for the power of attorney, or your attorney, or anybody close to you in your family, should know where these documents are. Something happens and you become incapacitated, you don't want people looking through boxes to find these documents. A lot of people like to put them in a safe deposit box. That's always a good idea, except for nobody should be putting a copy of or the original will in their safe deposit boxes. Once a person passes away, the bank usually seals that, and you have to, the executor has to prove that they're authorized to open it. It just becomes a bit complicated. But everything but your will in a safe deposit box is a good idea, or anywhere in the house where it's secured and people know where the important people that they're dealing with these, they should know where they are.
So maybe in your home in a fireproof box.
Yep, or a filing.
Just in case.
Or a filing cabinet or anything like that. I know a lot of people like to scan these documents too and put them on their computer. It's a preference of whoever it is, but usually keep the originals in a safe place.
Okay. You mentioned an attorney. Is an attorney necessary for all of these different documents?
To an extent, yes. The forms can get really complicated. Sometimes it's useful to have someone by your side that knows what they're doing. They know the law. They know the updates on the every regulation. This can be really complicated. So having someone by your side to help you with that is a good idea. A lot of people can do them by themselves. There's a lot of good information out there. The Montana DPHHS has a packet of information. Montana State University, through the MSU Extension program, they have a good website with all the estate planning documents and forms. I think there's a pretty long document with all the forms of estate planning and wills and all that. So the resources are out there. If you find yourself, if you want to do it yourself, you can. But if you find yourself to the point where you're not sure of where this is going, I'm not sure if you're doing it right, maybe it's better to find an attorney and do it.
And that can be a little daunting in and of itself. How do you find an attorney that handles this type of work?
Usually any estate planning attorney will be able to do the job. Finding them, it's usually word of mouth. You know, Montana has small towns enough for everybody to know who the good attorneys are. So word of mouth, or people can do research online. There's a bunch of websites out there that rank attorneys from, top lawyers to the bottom ones and whatnot. And another resource will be to contact Montana Legal Services. They can either help you or guide you and point you in the right direction, or even the law school. You can call the Montana Law School in Missoula, and they will be able to tell you about the resources that you need.
Oh, that's interesting. I would not have thought of them as a resource.
Yep, they're there, and they have a pro bono clinic and everything. It's pretty interesting.
Oh, that's great to know, because one of the issues that people think about in hiring an attorney is the cost.
Yep, it's there.
So when you can go to the law school, and are there other free or reduced cost?
There's a lot of attorneys.
Services?
There's a lot of attorneys in Montana that do this work on a pro bono basis, just because we have such a huge access to justice and access to attorneys problem in Montana, and some of them do it just because they want to help out. And you can call it any law firm, and probably the big law firms in Montana, a lot of them have a department specifically designed for that, for doing pro bono work. I know the law school has a pro bono clinic. Montana Legal Services, they do a lot of they do a lot of stuff too. It's out there. And then you have your regular attorney and the regular law firms that they charge a fee, and they can give you a free consultation. Sit down with them. A lot of them have just a flat fee. Hey, this is how much a will is going to cost you, or this is how much all this stuff is going to cost you. And again, it depends on the complexity of the matter. Some people have a really basic will. Some people have will that's 60 pages long. So
Sure. Okay, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
We do need to take just a quick break, but stay with us, because when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about advanced care planning after we go through a long list of documents that are really important. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. We are still talking with Ramon. Ramon, thanks for sticking with us, because this next part is hard.
Yep.
Okay, there's a long list of documents. Let's start with a trust versus a will. What's the difference?
So a lot of differences between them. The will kicks in whenever the person dies, or whenever a person passes away. The trust goes into effect immediately when it's formed and funded. The will usually has to go through the probate process. The trust doesn't, so that's why most people prefer to have a trust, because that avoids. Most people do it to avoid the probate process. The distribution of gifts and assets on the trust is done privately, as opposed to with the probate. There's a bunch of differences between them, but those are kind of the main ones. There's a lot of types of trusts too. You have your revocable, irrevocable trusts. You have some that go into effect immediately. Some of them are created but don't go into effect until the person passes away. There's a million ways to go about it.
And that's where the attorney comes in.
Yes, to that, yeah.
Yeah, because that sounds complicated. Are trusts for people who have, wealthy people, are those mostly for wealthy people, or is that a misperception?
Not necessarily. I mean, anybody can make a trust for the benefit of whoever they want to, leave stuff behind. It doesn't have to be, the wealthy people. And I know that the common saying of like trust fund kits and stuff like that, I think it's a huge misconception.
Okay. All right. Here's another one. Advanced directives. What are those?
Advanced directives, in a nutshell, they're instructions to the treatment team, to the providers, to comply with the wishes of the patient. It's you write any advanced directive today, put it on a piece of paper. This is what I want. If anything happens to me, this is what I want. This is what I don't want, and they need to follow it. It's just a directive for the treatment team.
Okay. What's the difference between a will and a living will?
A will is just your will and testament. You pass away, you're leaving all these assets. You have pay the creditors and everything, and then you have all your distribution of assets. A living will, or in Montana, it's also referred to as a advanced healthcare directive. It's a document that basically states to the treatment team, to the doctors, providers, these are the list of things that I want done in my care. A living will or an advanced healthcare directive doesn't go into effect until the person is incapacitated, and it's also part of their medical record. So you fill out an advanced medical directive. You can either fill the form or type it online. There's the Montana Department of Justice has a website where you can fill it out. That goes into the end of life database. I forgot the name of it, but yeah, there's a database on the Department of Justice, and it goes into the providers can see it. But again, It doesn't go into effect until the person it's incapacitated. Okay,
so a living will and an advanced directive are very similar.
They're used interchangeably within the Montana law. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. What about a durable power of attorney?
Durable power of attorney is when you have an agent act on your behalf for all medical decisions. For example, just you and I here, you can put a power of attorney and say, I designate Ramon as my agent, and I can make medical decisions for you, even if you're not incapacitated, even if you're sitting right here and need something. Of course, if you're able to express that you want something different, then that's fine. But the agent will be able to act on your behalf. Some of those are also made to be triggered whenever the person becomes incapacitated. There's in fact, the Montana form states, this POA, this power of attorney becomes effective immediately, and this person, my agent, can make decisions on my behalf. And then there's another box that says this power of attorney comes into effect if I become incapacitated, and if I'm determined incapacitated by this person. It could be a doctor, it can be a practicing nurse, or it can be any person that the patient or the person designates. So you can have me say, well, you can have it where I'm the one designated. Determining that you're incapacitated. It gets complicated, but there's a million ways to do it.
Okay, so it sounds like you better trust the person a great deal, especially if they're making decisions for you before you even become incapacitated.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have to share that information, I presume, with family so that they know, and that can avoid some of the conflict at that point?
When it comes to making those decisions, the first thing you need to do is talk to the person who you want to be your designated agent, and make sure that they're willing and able to do it. You're not going to put someone that you barely know and blindside them with this information whenever something happens. So have someone that's willing and able to do it, and then let everybody know, that person's going to be your agent. So whenever something happens, they know that's the person who will be acting on your behalf. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's great. I have one last question before we take a break, and that is, you hear about a DNR. What's the difference between a DNR, do not resuscitate, and an advanced directive?
And well, like I said before, the advance directive is just a directive for someone to do something on according to your wishes. The DNR can be part of any of these advance directives. It can be part of the the living will or anything like that, or it can be its own document. But yes, it's part of an advance directive.
So just one part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and it can stand on its own.
It could, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, that's very helpful, and I appreciate that. We are going to take just a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about if you're caring for someone who is disabled or you're their power of attorney, and some of the things you need to pay attention to. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Ramon, this has been really, really helpful. Let's talk a little bit about if you are caring for someone. For example, if you're caring for someone who needs to make some of these end-of-life decisions, what are some of the things that you need to consider?
If you're caring for someone that needs to make these decisions, you need to get their consent first. You need to make sure that they're aware of what's going on. Some people wait way too long for these things to start taking place, and next thing you know, you're dealing with someone that's kind of borderline incapacitated, not really able to make their own decisions, doesn't have the legal capacity to do these things. So being proactive and just getting everything ahead of time, it's the best course to go about it.
Now, you talk about legal capacity. Can you define that for us?
Well, the law defines what incapacitated means, but legal capacity basically means that the person is aware of their decision, that they understand what their decisions imply, and they're able to make them without any issues.
Well, and you mentioned, if it goes a little bit too far. So what if you are caring for someone who has dementia, for example, and some of this preparation has not been done? How do you do that?
If the person, like I said, if they have the legal capacity, by all means, just sit down with an attorney or sit down with your provider and go over some of this stuff. There is a process to go about it in Montana. If the person is incapacitated, there's a process of establishing a guardianship that goes through the district court. And it's a process where the court determines whether the person is incapacitated or not, and then if they are, then the court will assign a guardian to them. It's kind of the same thing with minors when you need a guardian to take care of them. And there's a lot of attorneys that do this, help families with these, so the process is less complicated and a little bit less painful for them. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the provider. If you're caring for someone who's preparing or making some end-of-life decisions, what role does their provider play? Should you develop a relationship with their provider?
Oh, absolutely. I think the provider should be aware of some of these advanced medical directives. Any provider order life statement treatment, what they call the post, that's actually signed by the provider. Just keep them aware so everybody, when something happens, everybody is on the same page, and also try to keep all these documents consistent with each other. You don't want to have a DNR on one page and not have it on the other one, or say, yeah, you keep me alive for as long as I can.
Oh, sure.
It's just keep it consistent, keep all these forms updated. And also, if anything happens, let's say you had an agent as your attorney in fact 5 years ago, and that agent passed away, you need to put a new one now, then you have to replace that person, or maybe you don't get along with your agent anymore and you have to update all that stuff. It's just, being proactive and keeping everybody, including the provider, involved in this.
So you've talked a lot, which has been very helpful, about how Montana handles a lot of this. Do these documents vary state by state? You mentioned the post, for example.
Yeah. No, they do. There's when it comes to estate planning, almost every state has a different set of rules and different ways to go about it. There's a uniform probate code that deals with estate planning. Some states have adopted it, some states haven't. It just depends on where you are and what jurisdiction you're in, and that's where again, that's where the attorney comes in handy, somebody that knows the state law.
Yeah, that makes really good sense. So as we think about, again, caring for someone and bringing their provider in, are there any tips about talking with other family members, for example, if family members are a little more removed, and getting everyone on the same page like you've talked about?
Yeah, it's always a good idea to let everybody know what's going on and what this is. That time's coming. We're planning all this stuff. Let's get everybody together and get everybody on the same page. Families are interesting. They not always get along. Everybody has at some point you're gonna find someone that doesn't agree with it. If they come to a gridlock, it's usually good to bring in maybe a mediator or someone like that. So to get everybody on the same page.
So who is a mediator, and how do you find one?
So a mediator is a person that's just a neutral third party that's trained in conflict resolution and trained to basically resolve these issues. And they can see everything from a different perspective, find that happy medium there, and so everybody can just live along.
So some of the resources that you had mentioned earlier, the law school, for example, can they also help you find a mediator if you need one?
Oh, absolutely. You can call the law school. You can call the Montana Legal Services. Again, that's when it comes to stuff like that. That's probably my first stop. Will be at Montana Legal Services, or if you know someone in town that's any law firm usually has a mediator.
Okay, great. And one last question to kind of wrap this up. The financial aspect of caring for someone and going through this process. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Financial aspect of caring for someone. If you are, I want to touch base on the duties of an agent. If there's a bunch of bills racking up. It is the agent's responsibility to take care of the financials of the person if that person's incapacitated. They owe a duty to that person. They shouldn't be commingling assets, so you can't take money from the patient's bank account, put it on yours, and then paying the bill. No, you just go straight from one point to the next one. Obviously, keep the best interest of the patient in mind, and just remember that you're an agent of them and not there to serve yourself. So when it comes to financials, just always make sure that you're watching for the best interest of the patient.
That makes good sense. Thank you. That's been great. Ramon, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Also, all the information provided today is just for information purposes and not to constitute legal advice. If any of the viewers have any issues, they should contact their attorney.
I knew you were going to have a disclaimer at the end of this. Thanks so much for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again next week. Until then, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life. Take care.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health in partnership with AARP Montana. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the Healthy Living for Life logo. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.